Hello students, my name is Julie Blaha and I teach 6th grade math and science here at Jackson Middle School. I'm really excited to be part of your expert day and help you learn a little bit more about attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Now those of you who know me, have had me in class or met me in the hallway, know that I'm pretty open about the fact that I am a little bit hyperactive. Well, quite a bit hyperactive. I've probably known my whole life that I was different than other students, but it wasn't only until kind of recently that I realized that there was a name for it. When I was 1 or 2 years old, my parents noticed I moved around a lot. I did something that's not uncommon for really little kids with ADHD. I flapped my hands. Now, that's just not waving. I did this with my hands literally all the time. I did it at the store, I did it at church, I did it in the car, I did it when neighbors were over. I did it even when people stared and wondered what might be wrong with this kid. All the time. And to be honest, this kind of feels good right now. I wouldn't mind doing this all day. I have learned, however, that it might be better just to keep my hands folded. As I got older, teachers would make comments like, she's very social. She has a lot to say. She gets a lot done. What they meant was that I was hyperactive. They also would say things like, well, she seems really intelligent, but she can be a little sloppy. Or, if she could just keep a little more organized, she would be amazing. Now, I did very well in school, but there was always this thing in the back of my head that I wasn't quite good enough, that something wasn't quite right. People would say that I was weird, and I would just kind of laugh it off. One of the things I learned to deal with my ADHD when I was young was to try to develop a sense of humor. If students made jokes about what I was like or teased me, I would quick respond with a joke. I would make a joke about my own activity. I probably still do that. It was one of those early coping mechanisms that helped me get through school. Now, when I was a little older, some of those things that were kind of maybe a little annoying to teachers and kind of fun to my friends in school got to be a real problem at work. My first big job, where I was making a real paycheck and had a real future opportunities, was in sales. I used to sell steel products to companies. Well, in that job, I understood how to build parts. I understood how to develop a price. I had great relationships with my customers, but I made a lot of mistakes. A lot of mistakes. I made as many mistakes by myself as 15 other people in my department did put together. For someone who was supposed to be smart and someone supposed to be good at math and science, I didn't understand why I was making so many mistakes. One day, I looked at my files and realized that I couldn't even put the numbers in order right. So I decided to go see a therapist. Now, what I was hoping for was a nice disorder like dyslexia. I saw people with dyslexia. Everyone thought how brave they were and how great it was that they were able to be so successful even when they had a learning disability. So that's what I wanted. I went in, met with a doctor, and I took tests for 2 days. I had fun tests like intelligence tests where I got to play with blocks and look at pictures. I had less fun tests where I had to copy down lists of numbers. I didn't enjoy it and I was terrible at it. Probably my favorite test was called the Torva test, where I got to click every time a square showed up at the top of the page, and then don't click when squares showed up at the bottom. Well, I clicked on almost every one. So when my results came back, the doctor sat me down and said, well, it's pretty clear that we can name what is different about you. And I said, it's dyslexia, right? I have a little problem with reading or maybe dysgraphia, something like that. And she said, no, you have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder with a pretty high hyperactivity component. And my first reaction was to cry. I didn't want this. I knew something about ADHD from having a teaching degree, and I wanted to be something else. And so I just sobbed. I told my friends, and I said, this can't be right. And they all looked at me and said, you have to be kidding. We all know you have ADHD. We thought you did. We just assumed you knew. I said, what do you mean? I'm just a little chatty, and I'm energetic, and I'm enthusiastic. And they said, no, you're different. We love you for it, but this is more than just being a little bit jumpy. So I dragged myself back, and I talked to a behavioral therapist. Now, she sat down and went through what ADHD was And all of a sudden, all the things about me that felt just kind of weird and kind of off made sense. The fact that I knew I was smart, but I was making mistakes that didn't fit with what I understood. The fact that I couldn't keep track of things as well as other people could. That it took me longer to build a habit as other people did. But the best part of the therapy was my behavioral therapist gave me ideas for making things better. I learned how to get my house organized so I got my bills paid on time. I learned how to manage my speech so that I came off as less squirrely. Now, I still talk fast. I still have some bad habits, but they got so much better because I had some help. Probably the biggest thing I did was I changed my career. When I realized that the job I had chose would be great for a lot of people, but pretty bad for somebody with ADHD, I decided to go back into teaching, which I had left for a while. It was so much better. I came into a world that was organized, a world full of people who understood what ADHD was, and everything got much, much better. Then I decided to try medication. It got better for a little bit. Unfortunately, it didn't really work out for me. When I first had ADHD, I was, again, really sad. Then when some of the therapy started working, it was great. I thought, great, this will be fixed. And then it got tough again when I realized, oh, this isn't going to be fixed fast. I have a lot of habits. I have a lifetime of habits to change and get in order. And then it started to get better. Nowadays, I wouldn't trade having ADHD for anything. I love the way my brain works. I like figuring out ways to make it work in the world with people who don't have ADHD. I don't mind that I talk fast. People get used to it. I get a lot of things done. And I'm unique. So my trip with ADHD has been high and low. Right now I'm at a good point with my ADHD. Happy to have it, but always working to make it work better in the world around me.